Shelley, and I am your sub-host for Which is the Moon. I am doing this video as a fill-in to Season 1. Erin noticed that some of the videos were missing and asked us to do a few fill-in videos to accommodate those spots. So my topic that I am doing today is community acceptance. And I want to talk about community in terms of a couple of different things, because community is a very broad term. So I'm going to talk about community in terms of community being your family and friends, community being your community as a whole, such as your neighborhood or where you live, where you work, and community as in the witchy community. So first, I want to talk about community in general. For those of you that have done any kind of research or studying at all, you know that the first rule of Witch Club is you don't talk about Witch Club, right? And a little Witches v. Sten reference there. And for a lot of people, that is still true. Going back to the burning times when people were being openly persecuted for being a witch, and that still goes on today, although we don't have the level of persecution that we had, thank God, during the burning times, during the 1500s through the late 1700s. However, there is still persecution that occurs for you being a witch. And I think a lot of people that are out and open about that can talk about some of the things that they've come up against in that regard. But I did want to talk a little bit about acceptance within the community in terms of your family. When you think of your family and your friends as a community, how open you are with those people depends on how good your relationship is with them. For example, I do not have a very strong relationship with my parents at all, or with my sister. I don't talk with them at all. So I don't know if they're even aware of my religious practices at this point. I know that a few of my cousins disapprove of my spiritual path, and I do think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that I was raised in a very staunch Christian household, as they were. And so coming from that Christian frame of mind, anything that has to do with witchcraft is evil. And like it or not, the Christian church has had 2,000 years plus to kind of burn the idea into people's minds that witchcraft is evil. Now, you also have Jews and Muslims that think that witchcraft is also evil. So you have that to think about as well. So if you follow any of those paths, or if you come from those backgrounds, let me rephrase that, if you come from any of those backgrounds, it may be something that you do not want to share because you may not find widespread acceptance. Now, that being said, I will say that my family members who are aware are generally pretty accepting. My kids think it's kind of silly, but that has a lot to do with their father's attitude towards my religion, which is very hot and cold. Some days he's very accepting and very sweet and very kind, and he gets me a lot of materials to work with. Bought me an altar table, got me a bigger cauldron, buys me incense burners, oil burners, allows me to order my herbs and do my thing as long as it's not around him. Sometimes he likes to watch my ritual, and to be honest with you, I'm very uncomfortable with that because I'm a solitary witch, and my ritual is between me and my Lord and Lady, and I find it very uncomfortable to have people watch. I don't like other people participating. I have conducted a ritual with one other individual, and it was okay. I feel the ritual was successful, but at the same time, I was very uncomfortable with that. I'm far more comfortable and feel that I can have a far better connection when I'm not worried about what somebody else is doing or what somebody else is thinking about what I'm doing. When I am focused on my ritual, that is a time that is not a time for me and my Lord and Lady to communicate and to commune, and I don't really like a lot of interference there. But in terms of my family and friends as a community, my friends are fairly accepting. I have a few clients even. For those of you that know, I have a private practice, and a few of my clients know that I am a witch. And they are pretty accepting of that. They take it and they go with it. And, they're on my Facebook. They see my posts. They don't make a big deal out of it. They're pretty accepting as far as that goes, and I think that's fairly neat. Now, there are certain clients that I have that are very Christian that I would not let them know what my practices are. And in fact, when I have a client who asks me about my religion, I typically tell them that my religion is not something I discuss with my clients. And that's because I like to separate my professional life from my personal life either way. So I just tell them I don't discuss that. I do have a few Muslim families. I have a few Jewish families. I have many Christian families. I have some families that are not really openly practicing anything but lean more towards a Christian bent. So I just generally tell them that I don't discuss religion or politics with my clients, and I leave it at that. Now, in terms of community, as far as my neighborhood, some of my friends who are in my neighborhood know that I am a practicing witch, and in fact, one of them bought me Llewellyn's witch's date book for Yule, and I thought that was very kind of her. Her daughter and my daughter have been best friends since kindergarten, and she was very open and accepting of it, far more than I was expecting. She's from England, and she's very open-minded, and she, like I said, she bought me, the witch's date book for Yule, which has been immensely helpful to me because it's where I kept track of all the dates for the videos and topics for the videos for Witches of the Moon, but it's also helped me with my year and a day studies, and it also has useful information throughout the year for witches. It's not quite like the almanac. I do have the Witches Almanac also, which has been useful for casting because I don't know all of the dates and when Mercury retrograde goes and when Mercury goes back out of retrograde and all of that off the top of my head. So I do consult the almanac when I am planning a large working of any kind. But I find that I don't really talk with a lot of my other neighbors. I don't have a lot of time. One of my other neighbors, the one that lives just this side of me actually, is on my Facebook, and she is aware that I'm a witch, and she seems to just kind of take it, and she hasn't really brought it up. It hasn't been a problem. I haven't had anybody egg my house. We do decorate our home a lot for the holidays, especially Halloween and Yule or Christmas. And Yule is my favorite Sabbat. Christmas is my favorite time of the year, and I love the music. I love the whole sentiment. For me, the Child of Promise is also a pagan belief. So, the whole idea of a child being born that's special at that time, to me, it just kind of goes right in line because the Christians took our themes and ran with them. And so, to me, it all goes hand in hand, and I just adore the entire time. I sing Christmas carols year-round and love it, love it, love it. So, my neighbors don't really think much about my religion. I did have a pentacle above my front door, but my husband made me remove that, so I placed it under the bricking at my front door. I do have them over the doors inside the home, and I have one over the outside of my back door. I do house blessings when my husband's not home. I sage my front doors. I put salt around my home to protect, and I do that kind of working, and I don't really care if my neighbors see me do it or not. I'm sure a few of them have seen me do it. Nobody's asked me. In terms of my work, because I own my own practice, I can be fairly open. I wear my jewelry. I have my moon symbol here, and then I have my pentacle. Now, my pentacle I often wear inside my clothing. I don't wear it on the outside typically. Sometimes I do if I'm going out or I'm going shopping. I had it on the outside of my shirt one day when I was at the car wash, and I had a gentleman ask me if I was Jewish. And I thought that was kind of funny, and I kind of chuckled and said, no, I'm not Jewish. And he said, well, you know why I asked you that? And I said, yes, sir, you asked me because of my pentacle. It's not a Star of David, which looks entirely different. A Star of David looks like two triangles like this. But I thought that was cute, and we chatted, and I didn't talk much about my religion. We talked about cars and that sort of thing since we were at the car wash. He didn't seem particularly bothered by it, even when I said it was a pentacle. I'm not sure he knew what a pentacle was. But generally, I just try to put my best foot forward in my community. I don't talk about my religion overly openly unless people ask me about it directly. If they ask me about it directly, I will educate them accordingly. And I do believe that once they understand that, I'm not going to sacrifice goats or skewer babies in my front yard or my backyard or even inside my house, that they realize it's probably not what they think. And that's what I tell a lot of people when I have somebody that go, oh, you're a witch. Yes, I am, and let me explain that to you. And I explain that witchcraft is an earth-based religion that believes in a god and a goddess, that I don't disbelieve in God. Because that's one thing I did have one of my Christian friends say is, oh, you've turned your back on God. No, I have not turned my back on God. I believe in God. I believe in a goddess. Um, my understanding and my relationship with the God and the goddess are just different than yours. She hasn't dropped me as a friend, so I suppose that's a good sign. She hasn't unfriended me. We grew up together. I would be very disappointed if she did. But I don't know that she really understands. And she is very staunchly Christian, always has been. So I don't know that she would be open to learning more about my faith, even if I asked her to. So I just don't. I just, we agree to disagree, and that's that. And as far as my workplace, I do have some of my religious things out in my workplace, and I just don't even bring it up. If people look around and they ask me about it, I'll tell them, yes, it's a religious symbol, and I just leave it at that. If they ask me what my religion is, I just go back and say I don't discuss my religion with clients. If it's someone that's not a client, that I'm not worried that it's going to affect my business at all, then I may educate them about it. I know that we're supposed to keep secrecy, but your religion is such a vital part of your life and who you are. I don't know that you really can keep it secret, per se. Now, in terms of community acceptance within the witchy community, this is a trickier subject because you would think that pagans would be very accepting of your religious views, and I have found that although we don't really have a particular dogma that we follow specifically, we all have our own individual paths that we follow. I have found that some people are very, very hostile to some of your personal beliefs, and I think that's kind of silly. I moved away from Christianity and the religions of the book because I find them to be religions ruled by fear. And I do not believe that the God and Goddess want us to fear them. I think that part of what made Native Americans and more paganistic cultures better than current culture is that they lived much closer to the land. They had a much better respect for the earth and a better understanding and relationship with the God and Goddess because of their relationship to nature, their understanding and respect for nature. Now, that being said, I am very conservative in my political views in terms of my fiscal beliefs. My social beliefs tend to be a little more liberal, and I would not consider myself an absolute radical tree hugger. I do hug my trees. I love my trees. It physically hurts me to see a tree cut down. However, I do understand that a certain amount of building must occur if we need adequate places to live, that society is what it is. Now, that being said, I'm a staunch conservationist. I believe that we need to do what we can to conserve our natural resources, to use them far more wisely than we do. I think there's a considerable amount of waste that goes on, and I think that we no longer appreciate, due to the massive scale in which we produce our food, we no longer have an appreciation for the animals that our food comes from. We don't respect their lives anymore. We don't respect the lives of the plants that we take our food from. And I find that very disheartening, and I think that that is probably the root of a lot of the problems that we have societally throughout the world in this day and age. But getting back to the topic of community acceptance, I found that a lot of my views are not accepted by a lot of other people within the witchy community, and I'm okay with that because I'm a solitary. I don't practice with a coven. I don't have to conform myself to any covenistic beliefs, and I don't have to conform myself to any particular dogmatic view by any of the religions. So for those that are traditional Wicca, I find that some of the more staunch Wiccans, kind of go ballistic when I say I don't necessarily believe in the rule of three. I don't necessarily believe that you sending forth negative energy, for example, if someone has wronged you, I believe you have a right to try to correct that wrong or to send back some of that to the person that sent it to you. Now, I also believe that some of what you send forth does come back to you because energy goes out and it traces back to where it came from as far as origin. So when you are not accepted within the witchy community, expect that some of that negativity is going to come your way. A good way to handle that is just to send back a binding spell or a return to sender spell. I don't necessarily think you have to go out and curse and hex, but curses and hexes exist for a reason. And I believe that the universe, the God and Goddess, will judge your level of justice. I do believe strongly in the principle of justice, that what you do is going to be judged and a suitable response is going to be sent back to you by the universe. And therefore, you should be cautious when you take actions such as cursing or hexing. There are oftentimes better ways of handling negative situations, even within the witchy community. And that brings me to a topic that I want to talk about in terms of the witchy community and acceptance within the witchy community. There has been a lot of talk online about witch wars. I am so sick of hearing about witch wars. What is a witch war? My understanding of a witch war is when there is a personal battle between the personalities and or energies and business of two or more witches. I don't like to get involved in that. I find a lot of politics are involved in that. I detest politics. I find that witch wars are kind of ridiculous in high school, frankly. I left high school 20 years ago. I wish to leave it 20 years ago. I don't care for this back and forth behavior. I don't have to agree with everything you say to accept you as a witch in your own right. And I don't expect everyone in the witchy community to accept my beliefs or to even like me or accept me. And they don't have to, and that's cool. We don't have to talk. But at the same time, if you ridicule me or you put down my ideas, I'm going to correct you. And I don't see that as a witch war. I see that as a defense of my personal stance. You can agree to disagree, and we can move on from there. We don't even have to agree to be friends, even. A lot of my friends I know disagree with my ways and my views, and that's cool. I'm good with that. So don't expect wide, broad acceptance even within the witchy community. What is important is that you follow your path. You come out of the broom closet, so to speak, to those that you feel comfortable doing so with. Others you don't feel comfortable doing that with, don't. Okay? Now, in terms of relationships, personal relationships with people, if you are involved in a romantic relationship with somebody and you are pagan and they are not, I do strongly suggest that you have a serious discussion with them if you are serious about this relationship. If you feel this relationship is moving in a serious direction, it's not just a, hey, we hang out when we have time and that's kind of cool and it's fun, but I don't expect it to go anywhere. I suggest you have a serious discussion with that individual right off the top, because if you do not have their acceptance, your life is going to be very hard. And I'll tell you, if you have someone who's bipolar, like my husband is, about your religious views, you're going to feel like you're walking on eggshells all the time. So in terms of acceptance in a romantic relationship and that level of community, I would strongly suggest you sit down and have a serious discussion with them. You tell them, look, these are my views. This is what my religion means to me, and this is what I call myself. Give them the opportunity to express their concerns and to either accept it or disagree. And if they're willing to accept it and be supportive of you, then I say you have a good relationship with that person. If they start ridiculing you, laughing at you, or seem off-put by your religion and you don't know that that's, I would definitely look at letting that relationship go. And I know that can be hard in matters of the heart because, we can't help how we feel about somebody. But at the same time, you don't want to involve yourself with somebody who's never going to accept your point of view as your point of view. They don't have to agree with it, but they have to be willing to accept your right to practice your religion free of ridicule. And that is what I'm going to say about that. With that, I hope that this video has brought some good perspective to you. Again, acceptance and what level of acceptance you meet, I think depends on the level of education you bring to the situation. Whether it be your work community, your family community, your community as a whole in terms of your neighborhood, your neighbors, and your friends, and within the witchy community. Don't expect acceptance everywhere you go, because you're not going to find it. There is still a good level of persecution, so be cautious with whom you expose yourself out of the broom closet. And with that, I hope you all have a blessed evening, blessed be, and talk to you soon.